Welcome back to the Harley Sportster project, the Retro Cafe Racer. Uh, Today will be a special episode of sorts because I finally finished those rear set foot controls. Uh, People call them rear sets, whatever. But rear sets don't necessarily pertain to cafe racers, but rather to any kind of performance motorcycles where you have very low handlebars, which this bike obviously does. So every time you have very low handlebars on your motorcycle, you want to put rear set foot controls because you don't want to be overly bent at the hip. And that's what today's episode will be. I'm going to set the camera down and install those. That's where they are. Install those rear sets, but before I do that, I'm catching up to speed where I left off. I don't think I had a tail light, for example, last time we visited. I don't know if the license plate and tail light assembly were on, but we might have a chance to talk about the rear loop altogether and how exactly does it mount there without it pivoting. It only has two bolts, coaxial bolts, and I'll show you how I did it if we have time. But another thing I did since last episode, I cut the front fender to be even with the bottom of the frame right there, and also that lower fender stay is now horizontal and it looks much better. Actually, there's how much of the fender I cut off? About 3.5-4 inches, and surprisingly I had to remake the front fender stay because it was now too short. And so that's what the bike looks like without the rear sets. That area is very empty. The exhaust doesn't quite make sense without rear foot controls, and we'll take another look at the bike after the rear sets are installed, and you'll see how much of a difference they make profile wise. You'll see there's nothing back there either. That's where my foot pegs will mount, right about there. But let's get to it. Install the foot pegs, and actually I'll show you before I even start to install them. I'll show you why I had to make them instead of buying them, because there's a few companies that make them, and they cost about $800, give or take. I think there are 4 or 5 manufacturers. Even Harley Davidson makes a set, but they all have one thing in common, and that is they lack beauty, they lack art, they lack sexy, they don't look cool whatsoever. So I made my own, and here's the brake side. Here's the side, and we'll go eventually. You'll get to see it. But the underneath looks like a aluminum casting, if you will, with ribs reinforcing the stress points. And right now it's made of steel, but I have a good friend of mine. Hi, Rye. A good friend of mine who is very talented at casting aluminum. And eventually I might, I don't know, maybe next winter, maybe when the bike is down next time, I'll take him over to him and see if we can work something out of aluminum, because, well, these are steel. They're not particularly light. Good thing is they go below the wheel axles, so it's a good kind of weight. It'll lower my center of gravity a little bit. And that loop around, you'll see that loop over there fits around that loop over there, so it's a physical interlocking. So I have 3 bolts holding it on, 1, 2, and 3, and even with 2 of those bolts being on and the last one being loose, the Bart will still not fall off the bike and will not index out of position. And I like using that sort of chemical or physical, physical interlock whenever possible for extra safety. And And here's the shifter side. This goes on the other side, and similar criteria, a little prettier than what's on the market. And as you can see all the ribs are reinforcing or connecting all the stress points. There's a mounting point right there, another one there, and another one there, and that will be my foot peg location. And I'll show you how it fits on. And the reason I had to make these is because whatever's on the market is just unacceptable. But anyway, I'll connect the brake side first, since we're on this side of the bike, and here's where all my tools are at. And then we'll take another visit around the bike and see how it changed the profile of the bike, and it'll be quite drastic. Anyway, here we go. It won't take me more than, I'd imagine, maybe 15 minutes, not even that. But it's fairly simple. So this was the original Harley Sportster pulley cover. It covers what used to be the pulley, now is the sprocket. We'll cover that up. We'll cut this corner off eventually, just because of aesthetic reasons. It doesn't do anything really. It's out of spot. And this goes like so. This boss and this boss also interlock with the hole location, so it goes like this. You'll see they're quite locked together. We'll have 3 bolts, one here, and another one here, and that for sure will not allow it to go anywhere. So here we go. Start with the stock pulley cover. We'll install it, and it goes like so. There's a bolt. There's actually 3 bolts holding it on, but they don't even need to be installed right now. We'll loosely install them because eventually we'll have to take it back apart to install the chain, which we can't install the chain yet until I wall the exhaust retainers. The exhaust is just sitting in the heads right now. It's unsecured at the rear, which we'll have to do that. And I'd rather not spatter any weld onto the brand new chain, and so we'll leave that for last. But so we'll very loosely install the rear sets. So before I install the cover, a friend of mine from Pittsburgh, hi John, was asking about what I mean by inversing the rear brake master cylinder. And this was the brake master cylinder, and it was installed exactly in those two bolt holes right there, like so. Harley had 2 options of foot controls. One was over here, the other one was way out in the front, which was what mine was. But because the foot control was in the front, the piston is in the front. Now we're moving everything back here, so therefore we basically inverse the master cylinder, so we can push the piston from the back side of it. Basically, it's simple. So this goes like this, mounts on it. There it goes, like that. It doesn't require any special tools or anything. I'm trying to reuse a lot of the same hardware and tools that were originally installed on the bike. That way you don't have to get special tooling or anything of that sort. We won't even install all of the hardware. We'll just install 2 of them, because even as is with 1 bolt, I mean, it's not going anywhere. It's that safe. But we like to overkill. if one job is worth doing, it's worth overdoing. So, and never tighten a bolt before you put all the other ones in there, obviously. And there we have it. It's safely located in spot. It is very sturdy, very rigid, very stable. Now we'll talk about the levers. This, I recycled this from the original motorcycle, the original Harley that came with it, and it had this attached to it. I cut it off. It was mounted way out in the front. I don't know if you can see from there, but it was mounted over there. So I don't need this big chunk of steel. It's going to be much shorter. It's going to be mounted over there. And also, if you noticed, this is actually the shifter side. It has a shifter knob, which I'll replace. Eventually I'll replace with a cool little old Harley pad. Harley Davidson used to use these on their rocket clutches for quite a few decades, starting in the 1930s up until the 1970s. So this is a pretty cool pad, easily available, and I think it'll look very cool, simple, much prettier than this. This was the shifter side, like I said, because once I move the levers back there, now it's a matter of fitting the linkage and the right angles, and now I need the linkage to be up above it, not below it. As a matter of fact, this is the shifter side, and the shifter side was the brake side. You can recognize the brake pad. Anyway, we'll install this quickly. It goes use grade 8 or higher whenever you can. I know the zinc plating isn't exactly pretty, but it's very strong, and if your safety depends on it, use grade 8. This mounts back there. I don't know if I caught it. Huh? Okay, let's. I like to recycle and repurpose old Harley parts as much as I can, because, well, Harley parts are a dime a dozen. There's the market is flooded with Harley parts, and they're easy to find anywhere. So here's the brake side. It's going to be about 45 degrees, somewhere thereabouts. So we have that. As I was explaining earlier, the same Harley master cylinder, we keep the stock part, rotated 180 degrees, and you'll see the shifter side. I had to original hole was that right there. I had to adjust for the ratio, the pedal ratio, because the shifter pedal becoming the brake pedal now, it uses a different ratio to push the piston in. So I drilled closer to what the original location was, and I installed the stud in there, and it mounts like so, and 2 bolts retaining the master cylinder onto the adaptive plate I made. the brake side is basically onto the bike. It's not like tied on or anything. Like I said, I have to go back there and repaint the bracket and install the chain and do some other work. But regardless, that was this side. Now let's install the shifter side, and then we'll take a final walk around the motorcycle to see if they had any visual impact on the rest of the motorcycle. And I guarantee you, it does. We're gonna work on that corner right there on the bike. So this adaptive bracket brings the peg location, which is going to be right there and about right there on the bike, from one location on Harley stock bikes was over there, another one was out in the front. We'll skip that obviously, and we'll reuse a lot of the stock parts. This side is pretty tight, very tight on there. This is held on also by 3 bolts. We'll use 2 for the time being. There's no reason. Actually, I'll put the 3rd one in just so I don't lose the bolt anyway. It doesn't take a whole lot to install it. But I mean, even with just 1 bolt, finger tight. And I shouldn't have put this one on, but you see how sturdy it is. I mean, you can shake the whole motorcycle by it, because those 3 knobs interlock. Oh, what did I show you? In case you want to make your own. In case you're also in the same boat as I am and unhappy with the current aftermarket offerings. There are 3 indents, if you will, where the bolt locations go, and all of those spacers interlock with those obstacles, and that's what basically retains it, keeps it from rotating. It doesn't. You won't allow it to index or clock wrong or anything. So it's very safe, even if you lose 2 of the 3 bolts. That's 66% of the holding power. That's something. It's pretty cool, I think. And it's good to keep that in mind. Whenever you have a natural obstacle on the bike, it's good to use it to your advantage rather than try to get rid of it and make things easier. Because obstacles are good. Sometimes it makes it a challenge, but. And there we have the adaptive plate installed, and that's it. And it looks very cool. It looks a lot cooler than anything else that I would see before. Back to this side lever, you can tell this was the brake side. It still has the I'm gonna cut this off. This will be cut off, trimmed around. It'll be trimmed around, drilled and tapped, and I'll use a regular knob, a regular shift knob, if you will. But this is also a recycled part from another Harley. This was a mid controls the brake side, and he went like this on the opposite side. I modified it a little bit to fit my application, but it's basically as simple as this. Bolt holding in the back. This is a stainless steel spacer, just so my lever doesn't rub against the adaptive bracket, which will eventually be painted or plated. I don't know yet. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But again, grade 8 bolts if you can. At least grade 8. Grade 10 is even better. But it mounts like so. and we won't over tighten it this side either, because I still need to get it off and get it painted. But somewhere thereabouts is the location of it. And this was I also repurposed, recycled this shift linkage. I had to put different bends in it, and actually I'm not happy with it, so I might have to make another one. But it bolts onto a adapter. I made this adapter, and this adapter, what it does, it adjusts for the ratio. This, having been the old brake pedal, has a different ratio than what my shifter needs. So I made this little adapter that bolts right in there in the pedal. Let's get this out of the way. It bolts in the pedal, and it locks itself in because it's a flat. It cannot go anywhere. It's a flat base against the hole. So let's bolt it on there. Oh, wrong bolt. And see how the shifter works. Of course, it'll work a lot better once I install my own shift bag over there versus that old brake pedal. But, there it is. The adapter is installed, and it brings not only my ratio from this center point to this center point, but also brings it back slightly, which is where I needed my leverage to be at. Closest to 90 degrees is best. And then this linkage mounts onto that with this bolt. And there we have the shifter side. And it's working. It's working as intended, and I think I'll show you what the bike looks like now with all the goodies in place. So this is the shifter side. And yes, you can see it's a continuation of the curves. It matches the contour of the fuel tank, the contour of the seat. It's just beautiful, and that's what the aftermarket foot controls are lacking. Now let's check out the other side. And yeah, it's beautiful. I don't know if you can see the contour of it, but it also, again, it's the same profile of the fuel tank. If you see the, fuel tank goes like this, and the bracket goes like this. And same with the seat, and the loop follows. It's the fuel tank, and then the bottom of the bracket follows the engine case, just like so. It's finally making sense. And the rear master cylinder, being at a slight angle, completely clears the exhaust. I actually have even enough clearance to take my bolts out and take the cover off and refill with fluids and what needs to be done in there. But yeah, that's this exhaust is starting to make sense now that the foot pegs are in place. And wow, it's been a longer episode than I wanted to make. And I was going to talk about the rear loop of the frame, that part right there, and how it interlocks with the frame. But we've already spent too much time today, and I think we'll leave that for another day. But before I do go, this is what a retaining bracket looks like for the front fender. That's, you see it, you see one there and another one there. It was a started off as a straight steel tubing like so, but I crushed the ends on a high tonnage press, both ends, and then the center. I crushed the center. Crushing the center makes it much easier to bend and follow the profile of the fender you have. Say you have a fender like this. It makes it much easier following the contour. But anyway, this one no longer worked after I shortened up the fender. So I'm glad it didn't work, because now I got a chance to show you what a fender stay looks like. Originally I tried to make these out of aluminum. Unfortunately, aluminum cracks too easily right on the edges. It's for some reason it's a lot more fragile than steel is. So this one is a thin wall aluminum tubing, not overly heavy. But anyway, that's that. But wow, the rear sets are just completing the profile of the bike. And once I replace that little goofy knob with this pedal on there, I'll have to adapt it somehow. But that will be easy, very easy. That will look very cool. That'd be so awesome. I can't wait. But anyway, I think we had enough for today. And there are your rear sets, your retro Harley Davidson rear sets. Again, these are not available on the market. I had to make them myself. But I showed you an insight of how to make them, if you want to make them your own, yourself, or you want to buy them. Anyway, in the meantime, we'll see you with the next update. And take care. Bye-bye.